Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for watching us. Welcome to another TerraQUIP Talk episode. As I promised you, we are going to have more guests coming over from now on. It's not just going to be me talking here for hours. And today we have none other than David Tevanian from Avopiling. I've known David for quite a number of years. He's a very respected professional in our industry. David, thank you very much. I know how busy you are. Thank you so much for taking the time to come here and talk to us.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me today, and I'm hoping I give you a bit of a story of what we've achieved and what we've done over the last 36 years, and what I've done over my career, and what we've brought back to the industry.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be very interesting. And besides Avopiling being Avopiling, the reason why I wanted to speak to David, another reason why I wanted to speak to David is because they're a perfect example for us, for TerraQUIP, of a situation where many situations where we said no to the sale, but we did say yes to the relationship. Our equipment was just not suitable at the time when they were in the market for what they needed, for their requirements. And of course, that doesn't mean we don't have a great relationship. That doesn't mean we're not going to work together at some point in the future. We always discuss, we always, I guess, negotiate, and but in the end, it's about, I guess, being fully honest and valuing the relationship more than you value the sale.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more. Ultimately, what you bring into your business, you need to bring in as part of what you see as growth in the business and where your business is at some stage. It grows and it evolves over a period of time. And for us, when we started, originally, we started with no piling rigs at all. It was essentially Avo went to an auction and was going to buy a crane, a 35-ton crane, and he ended up going into the auction, and his competitive spirit took over, and lo and behold, he bought it for twice the price.
Wow.
And that piece of 35-ton crane is still in our
Still with you guys.
We don't use it, obviously, but we rebuilt it just recently for Dad's 75th birthday. So that was a good day for him. We stripped it down completely and did a full rebuild on it. So it was a really good occasion. But from that unit, to what we've got now, it has evolved over a really long time, and that evolution in business, I've said a few times in the past, it's a law of nature. If you want something to continue growing, continue surviving, it needs to continue to evolve. Where, previously we were doing, quite often we were doing piles at 450 diameter, 600 diameter, 750 diameter in a local Sydney market. It's been a while since we've done that, unless we're doing a CFA type of work. It's been a long time since we've done that type of stuff, because the business has grown to the point where we're involved in major infrastructure projects, doing diaphragm wall, big diameter board piles, to very deep scenarios, 50, 60 meters, 2.5 meter diameter piles, diaphragm walls. We just finished a project where we installed something close to 66,000 cubic meters of concrete on one project. So the projects are getting enormous, and the business has grown from doing those really simple projects. But I've always had the mindset of, take on the big guys, do the big work, and be involved in major infrastructure works. And that's been something we've grown with all the way through.
That's, I guess, you've answered one of my questions, and it's funny because I asked Avo many years ago. It was like almost 15 years ago. I was sitting next to him at one of the piling federation, and I said, Avo, you've done so well. Congratulations! It's so impressive what you've achieved, the team that you have, the equipment, and all this stuff. And I was like, whoa, what sort of advice can you give me? What's your opinion? What do you think made you so successful? And of course, Avo responded in a very characteristic Avo way, and he said, big heart and big balls.
This is true. Yeah. That's the truth.
But besides that, of course, you need an incredible amount of vision, strategy, planning, hard work, of course, courage, and a big heart, as you said. But I guess what sets you guys apart is the fact that you've evolved with the marketing. You always looked at, you're one of the first ones to, correct me if I'm wrong, to bring the D-wall and to move from the continuous CFA wall to a D-wall.
There was multinationals who were completing that type of work. in Australia previously, and they're still playing in the market now. We were one of the first ones to actually hold a cutter in the country and held by a privately run business.
I thought, well, yeah.
Yeah, so even the story behind that was, when you've got a vision for that, had a vision for that, and essentially we were in Bournemouth in 2007. He was like, I want one of those. Turned up, and then lo and behold, within a year, we had a unit sitting in the workshop. And we didn't use it for 2 years. We didn't use that cutter for 2 years, but then in 2009, we got the opportunity to do a project up in Eagle Street. At the same time, there was an opportunity to do some 2.5 metre diameter piles down to 40 metres on that particular project. So we were able to wrap up the big diameter piles by buying the Bauer equipment, the BG40s. That's what we took on at the time. Then we also had the cutters. We brought that into the business, and then we were able to wrap the whole project up. And then we were doing a D-wall project once every 2 years. Then it turned into once every year. Then it turned into continuous work for a short period of time. And then it turned into having not just one cutter, but 2 cutters. And then we just recently, it was back in 23 and 22, back into 22, and genuine in sort of Feb 23 onward, we were running 4 cutters in the country. So as a privately run business, there is no other business doing that.
Yeah.
And, it is a matter of taking an enormous amount of risk with what we do. But it's measured risk. You're pragmatic in the way that we do it. We've never run a business plan. We never ever had a scenario that we strategized around a dinner table.
Wow.
Strategy's been around that or around a lunch. We've never actually set up and said we're going to run a business plan or something like that. It's been done by feel. It's been done by the heart.
By instinct, yeah.
By instinct. And we've also done it with what we believe is right. There's even if you don't think it's right, don't do it. If you think it's right in the context of what you're getting up to, then it works really well. And if you show commitment like we have to the industry and to our people within our business, then you get commitment back as well. You will see people moving through businesses, and you know what? That's just, again, that's part of that evolution. People grow and they'll move through. We used to get upset with that, but now we actually see that as a positive where, people come to us, they might spend 5, 10 years, and even sometimes 15 years with us, and they feel like they can move on and grow and they can take on a bigger role. I feel proud of that now.
Absolutely.
I don't feel like that's a negative anymore. I feel that's a positive. And yeah,
and sometimes they come back
100%. We've had people go
and they bring even more experience.
Yeah, they go away, they learn new techniques, and they come back, and then as it turns out, they end up staying for a really long time period after that. We grew very dramatically from sort of January, Feb 22 into March 23. We went from 120, 130 people to over 250 people in a really
doubled.
Doubled in a very short space of time.
That's so hard to manage.
It was very hard to manage, but we were able to bring people into the business, and because we're not a multinational, we hold a lot of the experience in the business, and we have a lot, Marcis, myself, and the greater operations team, and our state managers, and the broader structure around us. We were able to just pass that information and that experience.
It's much easier.
Yeah. We don't need to call upon people from overseas to come and do the work. We sometimes do lean on that scenario, especially when we first did the first D-wall project. We leaned on Bauer to assist us on that first one, but post that, we grew, we learned. I spent a lot of time on site learning those techniques. Marcis himself also spent a huge amount of time out on site, and we just pass that information, we pass that experience through the business. I'm a big believer in that. I had an instance when I was very young, when I was 18 or 19 years old, and I was trying to use an oxy, and I couldn't quite get it to work. I've gone from lunch, eating lunch sandwiches and stuff at school to being on site with 50-year-old men. It's a real shift in, where am I now? So, that I remember thinking to myself, there was an opportunity for a superintendent to actually show me how to use that piece of kit, but he didn't do it. he
was guarding his knowledge.
He was guarding his knowledge, but he also made fun of the young guy.
And although he was the son of the owner?
No, yeah, well, he didn't really care. He was a client, didn't care. It wasn't one of our employees.
Ah, okay.
He was a client's employee. And I guess there's moments in time through your career where you have that opportunity to teach someone younger. As we're now getting older now, and you walk into a room now, you're not the youngest person anymore. You're starting to become, the middle-aged man in that room.
I know the feeling.
So, off the back of that, you can take the time to pass your experience on, and people will hold on to that for the rest of their careers. That's a gift.
Absolutely.
That's an amazing gift to be able to give back to industry.
Absolutely.
And it's not only industry. What we do, we are leaving some serious legacies behind, and I feel it's a positive impact to everything that we do. You're going to have people disagreeing with you, but our intent is always to come in from the point of this is the right thing. You're building major infrastructure, you're building housing for people. You're sometimes getting involved in major infrastructure in the middle of nowhere, whether it's northwest Perth or northeast up in Queensland. You're building major infrastructure for the local communities to tap into and make use of. Whether it's a hospital, and we've touched on, we've done work across the nation now. The only place we haven't done work is in Tasmania, but we've done work across the whole nation, and so much of that work has been major infrastructure work.
One question, I guess, that I wasn't really sure. I'm not really sure about. I've heard different rumors. Did Avo have a business initially overseas and then started in Australia, or
yes,
it came initially?
No, he did. So our background, we're Armenian. Our background is Armenian. But we immigrated here in 1984
from Iran.
Yeah. So there's a very big Armenian community in Iran, and still is there. And we immigrated here in 1984, and Dad did have a piling business there. He actually did his schooling
in Iran or in
in Iran.
In Iran,
he had a piling business there as well, and he was essentially driving piles 10 kilometers from the border when the war broke out.
So precast piles?
No, he was driving steel piles.
Steel piles, okay, yeah,
steel piles, and you had no choice but to leave all that behind. Left the cranes, whatever else was there, and just left.
There was no logistics in place to put it on the ship.
There's no logistics, nothing like that in place. So we're a genuine immigrant story where we came here essentially with nothing. And there's an interesting story there where Dad still has a table and a set of chairs that we were gifted. We had somebody who came to the house and wanted to sell his business to Avo because he thought he was a big businessman. He got this immigrant from Iran. He's going to have lots of money. And he came to the house and realized we had nothing. We literally had nothing, clothes on our backs, and we were sleeping on the floor at the time in the house. Wow. And we went out to the shops to buy some food or whatever else. We came back, and there's a set of table and chairs there, and there was a note left there, and he said, I was going to give this to Vinny's, but I found a better cause. And we're still holding one of those chairs in the office now. It just gives you a reminder of what we've built over time.
Yeah, where he came from. Yeah,
where he came from, and I think that's really important. Some people will get lost in that. They build something and they get lost in themselves. I think staying humble and being proud of what you actually do is really important.
So they say, I've heard a great say. When something where everything goes wrong, be the proudest, be responsible. But when everything goes well, be humble.
100%.
Like put your nose up when everything goes wrong, but put your face down when everything goes well. Right? It's incredible.
Yeah, 100%. Some people think they're entitled to everything in life. Well, you want something, work for it. You want to feel entitled to something. I'm not a big believer in entitlement. If you want something, you work for it, and then you can say, you know what, I've done it by myself. Or we've done it with a group of people around you.
Yeah. And speaking of that, I mean, I can only imagine how it was for you to knowing Avo and knowing you guys, you and Masis, how it was, for you guys to, as you said, you started, from being in school to being on site and being the youngest and also being the son of the owner. So there's, I imagine it was quite a bit of pressure on you guys,
Yeah,
I mean, I've
100%.
worked with my dad as well. And it was always, that thing where, I want to show them that I'm good at what I'm doing and I'm going to learn fast. And I'm not just going to be favored by the fact that my dad is, the team leader or whatever,
Yeah, 100%. It's family business is really interesting to be involved with. It's sometimes very it's difficult at times because
Hell yeah.
there's family involved, there's work involved, and there's all these complicated relationships that come along with that scenario. Mum and dad were involved in starting the business in '89, and then I joined in '97 as a school leaver. I finished my Year 12 certificate and then joined. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I wanted to do something with my hands. I was doing carpentry at school, a lot of table work, and I was doing some really one-off pieces. So I felt I was actually quite talented in doing that type of stuff. I was very precise in everything that I was doing. And then Dad was like, "Why don't you come and work with me?" And at the age of 18, I started on a project at Arncliffe. We were doing 900 diameter piles down to about 36 meters.
Kelly bar drilling?
They were Kelly bar drilling, but we were using crane mounts. So Dad, after the cranes, after that single crane, he then purchased a couple of crane mount rigs, which he got built over here, 125, which sat on a P&H, and a 250 CAH, which sat on an NCK crane. And that's what I learned to drill on and what to operate it.
Wow.
Originally, even the 35 tonner. So it's old school Kelly bar drilling with friction bars.
Wow.
You give a friction bar to a guy now
Good luck.
you got no chance. You have no idea what to do with it. It's a totally different skill set.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we had some really good operators who worked for us back then, and I learned to operate. But yeah, there were the guys who were 40 or 50 years old at the time looking at me as an 18-year-old kid. And I was a kid, 100%. You're coming out of this and you're walking into a high-risk industry, and you don't understand. You're naive to all that stuff. But yeah, some of the guys really took the piss, as you may say.
Yeah.
But you grow over time and you show commitment. Yeah, and then
you slowly earn their respect.
You earn their respect, right? Because they can see you're tied in, you're trying your hardest. Yeah,
not just because you're the son of the owner,
yeah,
of the
correct,
chief or whatever.
Yeah, exactly right. And you're putting time and effort in. And I did my carpentry as a trade. I did full carpentry, and then I carried on to do civil engineering post after that as well. After I finished, so I was working full time at the same time doing my civil engineering, which was really hard work. But then you find that after a period of time, those old guys who were with you first leave the business or they retire, and then all of a sudden, everyone coming in underneath you, you're not a new face to them; they're a new face to the business, and they look up and you go, "Oh, okay, the young guy is running a project."
They look up to you,
yeah. And I was thrown in the deep end, 100%. I was given a notepad, a pen, and a mobile phone, and within 2 weeks, I was ordering concrete. Dad was like, "I've got to go. I'm going to go and have a look at this other project. They're going to ask you to order the concrete. Pile's 36 meters deep. You're going to have to order the concrete. When they're ready, just give Boral a call." And I'm like, "Yep, we're ready to go." I ring the guy up and he's like, "Okay." I'm like, "Order 30 odd cubic meters of concrete," whatever it was at the time. And he goes, "Do you want a message with that?" And I was like,
"You want a message with that?
What the freaking, what's a message?
What's a message?
What's a message? So I was like, "Yeah, okay, I'll take a message." You learn this stuff and obviously a little while later you work out what a message is.
Yeah, of course.
But it's all the way through. There's moments in time where I remember sitting with a surveyor and he was trying to explain to me what an RL was. And that was before I'd done any of my survey work or anything.
Any engineering work.
Or any engineering work. And he sat me, and you know what, Martin? I remember his name. Martin sat me down as a surveyor, and I could see he was getting so frustrated with me. But he took the time to show me something, and I will never forget that. That's the point. Yeah, you teach, and you grow, and you learn new things and new things and new things all the way through to where we are now, where you know so much about the industry, whether you're doing driven piles with steel tubes or concrete, or whether you're doing board piles with bentonite or polymer, or whether you're doing diaphragm wall with bentonite and everything else that goes with it. You go from not knowing how to order concrete to understanding an enormous amount, and you become an expert in your field over that period of time. But it's taken almost 3 decades.
Of course.
You know, you can walk into a meeting now and say, a client asks you, what are we going to do technically to do this, this, and this? And you go, okay, I want this. Solution. You know the solution. And it's from years of practicing that art. You don't always have to be the smartest person in the room, the most intelligent person, but time, effort, and persistence.
And experience.
And experience, experience comes with all that. But if you put time, effort, and persistence into something, and your intent is good, you end up with an amazing product or an amazing achievement. Ultimately, you have to have a goal, obviously, at times, and you have these visions of, you know, whether ways. I remember driving past big infrastructure projects and thinking, I see one cutter and one grab. I was like, geez, I'd love to have one of those, or work on a project like that. And we're doing stuff like that. I remember when we first assembled and commissioned the SC500, the Sumitomo crane. It was our first hydraulic crane we bought after the NCKs. It was our first hydraulic. And we were putting that thing together. It's got 20 mil rope. We're putting that through the hand bones and everything else. But next to us was a SC150, a Pack Series Sumitomo. And I remember looking at that and going, geez, I'd love to have a 150-ton crane in the fleet. You know what I mean? And you dream of this stuff. And sometimes the dream comes quickly. Like it comes to fruition. The vision that you had comes to fruition very quickly. But sometimes it takes 5, 10, 15, 20 years for that to come through.
You got to be very patient.
You got to be patient. You got to spend the time. You got to stay committed to the cause, as you may say. You know, we're doing that project down in Melbourne, and we needed some cranes for the project, and we were looking at some decent sized cranes. We put an order in at the time for 6 cranes. We bought us a 90-tonner, 200s, a 150, and 2 250s.
Now, this is my moment when I look at it. I would love to be that salesperson that gets
Yeah. Sorry. He's I've been told he's actually put that one up on the wall. He's got the signature on the
course. I would too.
So, but it's, you know, I dreamed of having a 150 tonner in the fleet. We've got that. We've got 250 tonners. And even now when we go down the workshop, we go down there and sometimes we even surprise ourselves as to what we've done, what we've achieved. You look at all the equipment you've got and all the people around you who actually help you. And it's not just us. It's never just one person.
It's mainly the people.
It's the people who believe in your vision. There's the people who believe in the path that you're taking.
One of the things that I've noticed, to be honest, I wasn't really even thinking about this, you know, when I started TerraQUIP, but you know, then starting having, you know, like it was just me and my dad at the beginning, then, you know, having the first employee and the second and the third, and then after a while, I look at some of them. And I go like, he actually knows some things better than me now.
Yeah.
And I've taught him all of that. Yeah. And that's such a huge sense of achievement, you know, and brings so much fulfillment and meaning, you know, and gives me so much motivation. I'm sure it's the same with you.
Yeah, 100%.
You would have had hundreds of people that you've trained and you worked with and you shared your knowledge with. And this should be, in my opinion, not only as a business person, because of course I want to do that in order to have qualified people and skilled people. But even if you work in a team, a lot of the people, the mentality is not a lot, but some, I've seen that they guard their knowledge, you know, like you said, that gentleman, Martin, you know, he sat you down, he had the patience with you to, it's not that, I'm going to share with knowledge, you know, my knowledge with him. I'm not going to be so, I guess, special because there's going to be other people knowing my knowledge, but that doesn't happen. What happens is you get to the next level because you've got people that you've trained.
Yeah, 100%.
Isn't it, right? What's your thoughts on that?
100%. I will very often walk into meetings with the belief that I'm there to assist and facilitate the success of everybody in that meeting. And if someone wants my position, come and take it.
Absolutely.
Come and have it.
Absolutely. I would love for some of
it's yours to have.
Absolutely.
If someone's got that drive to be able to do that, then come and do it. I've got no problem with that. I'm not. That doesn't bother me at all whatsoever. Because, as I say quite often to all of our people when I get them in a group, our success is also their success, your success, and it flows both ways.
Absolutely.
And if I've got a lot of everything that we do, a lot of our piling work, it's all that 1% stuff. You get all those things right, everything else falls into place. Yes, we play in a high risk industry, process and procedure and engineering. You get those things right, and everything else falls into play. There's people in the industry that believe that you can do zero harm in what we do. It's nearly impossible because you're part of the process. And as I said earlier, I'm pragmatic, I'm practical in the scenario there where, if you cross the road, the likelihood of you getting hit by a car is increased.
Yeah, of course.
And it's not because the cars are crossing on a regular basis. You can pick your time to go, but it's because you're part of the process.
You're part of it, correct.
So,
absolutely.
And it frustrates me with the industry at times where people will point fingers at you, but as I say, you're pointing a finger at someone, there's three pointing back at you. We're all in it together.
Absolutely.
If you don't want to have any incidents whatsoever,
stay home.
Stay home. Don't do any work. And even when you're at home, you can there's a likelihood of something happening.
Absolutely.
So sometimes people lose that scenario.
Speaking of that, and speaking about like the safety culture in general, like you obviously like you're part of running a huge company, different states, Sydney, Brisbane, Perth, and Victoria as well,
Correct.
Melbourne as well. What are some of I guess it's, it's a very complex answer, but in simple sort of terms, what's the sort of culture around safety? How do you guys stay up to date, with the latest safety, I guess, factors and rules and procedures?
Look, you got people who manage the legislation, the safety and everything else, Mike, but ultimately what you need to do is invest in your equipment and invest in your people, invest in the training. And you can't continue to use something that you've been using for 25 years in the fleet. You have to
just because it worked back then.
Just because it worked back then. But, okay, the process you may be doing a similar process, but invest in the new equipment. Don't rely on old equipment. That's why we're constantly buying new equipment on a very regular basis. And with that comes all the new bells and whistles, the new technologies. You've got, some of the machines now are outputting ground bearing pressures for the operators and that type of stuff. When I first started, very few machines even had a depth gauge.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I was talking to an operator that was saying that they were putting marks on the rope and they were counting the marks on the
100%. That's where I started.
Yeah,
and if you're using a crane mount machine with a 3-part rope running down the Kelly bar on a 600 diamond, mate, the thing's an air operated mechanical machine. Where are you going to get a depth gauge from? The only way you can do it is by throwing a tape measure down the hole. So, with that, then tape measures or depth gauges started becoming a norm on the machines. And then off the back of that, you started getting load sensing on the machine. So you could see what the safe working load was running on the main winch, what the working load was on the secondary winch. And now it's getting more and more sophisticated where you can pick up the ground bearing pressures on some of the machines while they're operating because they've got that capacity. So by doing that, you're constantly bringing new technology into your business,
but also keeping your fleet young and safe.
Exactly, you have to continuously invest. Piling is a really piling, the drilling, the whole industry is really capital heavy, and you have to be committed to it. Okay, it's easy to go and buy a piling rig or a crane. It's actually not it's not hard. You can either invest in a house or you can invest in a piling rig or a crane.
Pretty much the same price nowadays.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same price, yeah. So you can go and do these things, but the matter is keeping on top of it and spending time and maintenance and being committed to it. You have to spend money to make money.
Absolutely.
You have to spend money to make money. And you also have to spend the money on all this maintenance and everything else. Our workshop costs are enormous. Monthly basis, they're enormous. But we never stop there. We just keep chugging on, whether it's the workshop in Queensland or WA or New South Wales. We are always working on, doing maintenance, repairing stuff. It's just it's ongoing. It doesn't stop. And with that commitment, you work through the engineering. We have mechanical engineers that work within our business, and that's integral part of piling work. We're not a piling business anymore. We're a genuine engineering business now, and piling. Everyone in the piling industry, this term gets used, subcontractors. But everyone who's doing their bit, they're specialist contractors, and that's what should actually be pushed really hard. We're specialist contractors, whether you're doing your form work or whether you're doing anchoring works or everything else. You become a real specialist at that, and without the specialists doing their bit, they can't assist the main contractors. Because
you're only as strong as your weakest link, right?
Yeah, and we are genuinely now, we've evolved from doing those small projects to what we're doing now, genuine engineering business, which is that's how you manage the safety, and you also drive the fact that you're there with them, and if they need to stop to resolve something, or it just happens. It's not a matter of we'll just roll over and keep going and keep going.
At some point, you have to stop.
Yeah, you have
waste
to
money.
stop.
I guess.
Well, so
money,
be it.
But at least
it is what it is. Yeah, fix it. Keep moving on.
Yeah.
You have to have that culture through your business where people are open to talk to you about issues.
Absolutely, and it applies to all of us at every single level. I mean, what we do is extremely dangerous. It's extremely complicated. I said it many times. We in a drilling rig, you've got hydraulics, mechanics, electrics, electronics, software, fluid mechanics. Like it's just such a complex, I guess, field and equipment. And yes, safety is absolute paramount, regardless of the level, whether you're Avopiling level or TerraQUIP level or whatever.
No, it makes it. We're all exposed. Some people will laugh at other contractors because they've done something. Do you know what? You're all exposed to the same risk. And if you don't follow a process to make sure that doesn't happen, you can get yourself into trouble. Sometimes I think of it this way. If you want something to happen in your business, you make it convenient. You want people to report stuff, make it convenient.
Make it convenient, yeah, that's right.
If you don't want something to happen, make it inconvenient.
Make it complicated, yeah.
Yeah, make it inconvenient. So put engineering processes in place, put a procedure in place, and get the guys to follow that stuff, because you're making them convenient to make sure they succeed. Yeah. And that's the point, yeah? Don't make it harder for them. At times, people look and go, this is going to be hard. But at the end of the day, if they just follow the process, follow the procedure that we've set, follow the engineering that we've set, everything else falls into place. You have to make sure your people are trained properly and they understand it. You have to spend that time to do that.
Time and money.
Yeah,
that costs a lot of money as well.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly
right. We spoke about DeWall and how Avo saw in 2007 at Bauma.
Yeah.
I won one of those, and now DeWall has become not so prevalent, but quite prevalent, with other contractors as well, and not the size of Avopiling. Even smaller contractors, you see they're kind of dipping their toes into that market as well, right? Where do you first question is, do you think that this is kind of like CFA was back in the 90s, then and it's growing now? CFA is grown to be pretty much 50% of the bore pile, right? It's almost 50-50.
Yeah, I guess what
do you see DeWall going the same way, being that popular?
Yes, but to break into doing the really major infrastructure stuff, there's a lot of money you need to spend to get to that point. Yeah, which keeps a certain number of people out just because of the sheer investment required to do it. But a product is as good as the people who actually deliver it.
Yeah, it's not just the equipment.
It's not just the money. Equipment, because you can go and do a CFA. We've done CFA C compile walls without casings involved, without case CFA scenario, and the walls have been absolutely fantastic. But
perfect seal,
perfect good seals, everything else. You need to pick the right ground conditions. So the people who are performing it, you right from the start, you need to make sure it's right.
Yeah.
Same thing with D-wall or anything else you do. People sometimes rubbish piles being built under polymer. They're like, you can't do that because you end up with a shit pile. No, it's not. It's just the process hasn't been followed properly because it's a pile has been built so well using polymer. So many thousands of meters of piles have been put in without using drilling fluids.
for sure.
You have to follow a process. And if you follow that and you have the right people from the top telling the guys what to do and they understand it innately, then it all starts to work. So, yeah, D-wall is getting a really good name for itself because it's been delivered in a really good way over the last 10 years. So the contractors, where they used to think it was only a very small pool, so they say, you know what, we're not going to do it this way. We're just going to do standard cased CF8 pile work or Seacon pile wall. We'll go from there. They're now realizing that a D-wall is actually a really good option as well.
Let's talk a little bit about if you don't mind, about the advantages of D-wall. So obviously you've got production, right? Because you've got the improved logistics on site, right? Because they can dig at the same time as the concrete trucks come in, and then you've obviously got quite a good seal, so less room for error, I guess, compared to a KCFA, or it's a better seal, right?
Yeah, there's seals, on a D-wall panel, your minimum length, what we work to sometimes is 3.2, but our minimum length is 2.8. So you're seeing a joint every 2.8 meters at the minimum. On average, our panels are sometimes 6.4 meters in length. So that's a triple cut scenario, stop ends going in. So you're seeing a seal on a lot less per meter run. So just by having that, and you're then also installing water bars. And as you're doing that process, the number of joints coming through it's a lot less. And when you create that water seal as well with the water stop, the likelihood of water coming through is a lot less. If you do a Seacon pile wall on 6.4, depending on the diameter, you might have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 joints, depending on the pile diameter, through that area.
So the room for error increases.
The room for error increases. The verticality room for error increases as well. You got a 25 ton or 35 ton piece of plant going down a trench. The verticality is held a lot easier. The skilled operator, it takes.
Is that simply because of the weight of it, or because of the adjacent?
It's a combination of things. It takes the operator the skilled level to actually steer it when you're going down as well. And by doing that, you because you're able to monitor what the cutter is doing or the grab is doing, you can seriously get really tight tolerances on your verticality. Whereas if you're doing with the case CFA scenario, you can hold it because you've got a casing coming to the top. But people try and deliver a Seacon pile wall in soft ground standard CFA, and they come unstuck because the auger's moving and you can't see what's happening with that.
You can't, yeah.
So that causes a big problem. A client might lose a basement because of that scenario.
So then it becomes obviously efficient when you put in balance the relatively high setup costs for bentonite, trench cutters, and all this stuff. But then you have less remediation, less risk, less litigious problems versus a cheaper setup to do at the beginning, but more room for error. And that becomes
100%. There's it's horse for courses as well. Like sometimes you see people doing CSM retaining structures, which works. You see the coast CFA. It comes down to what the client is willing to spend to make sure it's done properly. D-wall is a Rolls-Royce scenario. Finding the right contractor to deliver it is also not always straightforward. Quite often they are multinationals who are delivering these big projects. They're not a local contractor. To have that experience is not straightforward. For some people can go through their whole career without walking onto a project with a cutter.
Absolutely.
Or a grab. They can do a whole career and never see one, never work with one. So
it's extremely specialized.
It is extremely specialized, and there's only a small percentage of in the world who actually understand it well enough to be able to deliver it well enough.
I agree.
But to convince a client, sometimes it's not feasible for them to do it. But if they're willing to take it on, it's by far one of the best products for retaining structure. Like we do sometimes we've done projects on the Gold Coast We've done projects over in Perth, and they're 20 meters deep, sometimes 30. We've been over 40 meters on some of our panels for major infrastructure projects. You do it right, it works fantastically. But that's the same with any of our piling methodologies. CFA can be one of the most efficient ways to get piles and cubic meters in the ground. But you know yourself, it can also be one of the hardest. You have a blockage and you have problems on site. Concrete starts to go off in your concrete line.
There's so many.
It's actually one of the most complicated piling applications that you can deliver. If you have a bunch of guys who know what they're doing, there's hardly even a conversation that's had during the day, because I've worked with teams like that. Everybody knows what they're doing, and you can get cubic meters in the ground, It's very different to, though, where you're doing a dewalt project where you might be pouring 150, 250, even 350 cubic meters into one panel. It's just a totally different scale. Yeah, they're huge. It's a totally different scale. Yeah, it's just a completely different scale of work.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of new drilling technologies and I guess, dewalt is something that's becoming more prevalent now. What do you think the future holds for us in terms of drilling technologies? Do you see or have any ideas or any guesses?
No, in that scenario, I see the equipment getting more and more advanced. But with that, your operators need to become more and more advanced to run the machines. Because ultimately, you're still drilling rock or you're still drilling clay, and that's 1 million years old. The techniques that come to managing and becoming more efficient to manage it, it is not changing a huge amount. There's this sonic drilling and that type of stuff, which is creating more efficient ways of doing small hole diameter stuff.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen any of that. Yeah, soil investigation. I haven't seen any of that stuff coming into the bigger diameter piling work. Sometimes it's just brute force or finesse required to drill through 180 or 200 MPa rock.
Yeah.
So you might deploy, just as opposed to using a standard core barrel, you start to use more sophisticated methods where you're using roller core barrels and that type of stuff to take the rock out. But I see it becoming more and more, the equipment becoming more and more efficient, and the technologies within the equipment to give the operator more information what's happening down there. There's definitely more technologies coming up with verticality of holes and all that type of stuff, which is then being thrown, with electronics and everything else getting smaller and smaller and giving us the ability to actually monitor what's happening. I can see that starting to come through. I can see there's more technology being applied to pile testing, even pile driving. You can see, different technologies being applied there for the pile monitoring and checking the energies and everything else that's going on. There's a lot of that going on, and that will continue to evolve, and that will create efficiency within the piling industry. How we engage the ground, that may change over time as well. But if you want to use a down the hole hammer, which I feel is one of the most efficient ways to get through rock, you have to burn so much diesel to do that. Yeah, if you want to do a large diameter down the hole hammer, 1.2 meter diameter, you're talking about 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 compressors running diesel, burning diesel. Clients aren't always willing to pay
that sort of cost.
To pay that cost. They're because you're up against people who are happy to go there with a Kelly bar and just drill it with a core barrel. The cost difference is so big that they'd be happy to take the hit on the program and suffer a loss on program than nail the program and pay a huge amount on it. So that's what we see as well.
Putting all of that in balance, absolutely. You mentioned about Kelly bar drilling, and this is something that I guess interests me a lot, is because I feel like some of even the bigger names, they're pushing, or they have tried to push a little bit this agenda of like lighter equipment, higher pressures, higher power, right? But as you said, we're drilling rock, right? We're drilling something that's been there for thousands of years. You need the weight to sit on that.
100%.
Right? So Can you tell me your thoughts about this? I mean, you look at some of the bow rigs, the Rolls Royce, yeah, they've been great machines, but they had the weight as well behind them.
Correct. That's the difference. Like there's certain machines that we will throw at a specific project because we know the machine has just got the weight and the genuine mass to handle the rock. You can have, you give me two different machines. You give me a machine that's 120 ton, same torque, and a machine that's 180 ton, same torque, slightly different geometry on the 180 ton machine, and you think that this is going to do the job because of the torque. It doesn't work like that.
Absolutely not.
It does not work like that. And when you've got the mass behind you, and when you start to get in, 150, 160, even now we've got the BG55 in our fleet, 230 ton unit. It's enormous. It's got so much mass behind it.
260 tons, correct?
I think it's sitting at about 230, 240.
230, yeah, okay, yeah.
It's a big unit. So obviously it depends on what Kelly bar you're throwing onto it, but that machine can handle a 100-meter Kelly bar without drama. Yeah. A huge winch. It's got a huge mast. It's got heaps of capacity up its sleeve.
Absolutely.
So my thoughts are this. If you have a bigger machine, it's not always, it's got more capacity. Torque is not everything.
Yeah.
Sheer weight is
torque or crowd force or
crowd force as well, 100%. Yeah. And even the geometry of how the machine is set up can make a big difference. Even the weight of the mast, you can have two machines which are exactly the same weight, same torque. The weight of the mast will make a difference on whether that machine.
The program, the connection between the mast.
100%. Yeah. Like we've had V versions up against parallelogram units, and the parallelogram unit, because it's got a heavier mast, has done a better job.
Well, there you go.
But we've also had units with parallelograms, same torque values, everything else, same winch sizes, all
not
that
even close to
which
that.
Cannot meet a machine which has got a V version scenario. So you have to understand the equipment to be able to make the right choice to deploy it onto the right project. And if you have that knowledge and you have that understanding of the different geologies around the country, then right from the start, you're picking the right equipment. You're not sending a 60-ton machine to drill 200 MPa rock. Yeah. You're sending a 140-ton machine to go and drill that 200 MPa rock. And you'll get through it with the right tooling and everything else,
Absolutely.
Makes a difference.
I remember a few years ago, someone called me and straight from the bat, like he just said, "I like your IMT machines. Your IMT machines are good." I was like, "All right, I want to hear all about it." Yeah. I got my own thoughts, but let's hear yours. He goes like, the distance between the center of the pile and the center of gravity, they're a lot smaller on the same machine versus my machine, which is whatever other brand. I'm not saying the names. And I was like, "Yeah, that's right." He goes like, "That gives me more weight to sit on that tool." I said, "I want your machine." That was a Saturday morning. On Tuesday, he bought an IMT 140.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're talking about different levels here. The small sort of operator with two rigs, in the middle of whatever, North Queensland. But there were people that got this. There are people that understand, that, I can put anything in this catalog. No one stops me to put whatever value I want, whatever pressures, whatever engine. I've got the space to throw in the biggest engine. But if I don't have the way to sit on it and the geometry, like you said, the way it's set up, it's not going to be a very efficient rig. It's not going to be the greatest rig.
No, 100%. I totally agree. It's the same thing with cranes as well. You have to pick the right crane for the right lift you're carrying on, the right type of work you're doing. It makes a big difference, and understanding that comes from years of experience.
Absolutely, yeah. Experience plays a huge role in our industry, and a lot of the lessons I've had to learn were the hard way, because I didn't have experience with that sort of thing.
But if you go through your career without any hard lessons, you don't learn anything. You're not forced to learn.
Yeah.
You are forced to learn when you have adversity. When I give you one of my most difficult situations I've had at work, which may not seem very difficult when you look back at it now, but at the time it was a nightmare for me. We'd bought a cut. We bought the cutter. We were doing a trial down in the workshop, and we had it all set up. It had run, no drama. We sat it for a week. We sat it for a week and a half, 2 weeks. We called all our clients down for an open day, and we kicked the cutter off, and we started circulating, started cutting, and the next minute the desanders are overflowing. So there's bentonite just spewing out over the ground everywhere. I'm like, oh my Lord. And I'm running the day, yeah. And I'm like, shut everything down. And you just got to take it. It's an embarrassing moment. I was like, put my hand up. I was like, guys, we've got some technical issues. Here's the cutter. I hope you enjoy the day, you know. And I'm like, oh my Lord, this is a nightmare. Really embarrassing moment for me. But you learn from it. I know now that if I have a break there for 2 weeks on a project, one, you dump the hoppers on a desander and you make sure they're spotless. So when the float comes up and seals, it won't overflow. I didn't know that back then. Yeah, I'd never used this equipment. But through adversity, you learn a lesson in life. Yeah,
and it happened to me quite a few times. You know, I remember this one time I was really depressed. You know, because we're trialing a 60-ton A215. You know, on a job site, and because of the ground conditions, you know, it wasn't going really, really well. Nothing to do with the rig. It was just the wrong technology. And I remember I was going home and I was really depressed. And one of my friends, actually, he's really smart. He said, "Why are you so sad about it? I don't understand." And I was like, "What do you mean?" Because like it's not going well. It's not putting out a good name there for me and for IMT at the moment, you know. And he goes like, "Yes, but you are learning so much. If everything would have gone great, you would have learned absolutely zero.
Nothing.
You would have been exactly the same. So you going through all of this and fixing all of that, yes, it's embarrassing. Yes, maybe you've lost a name in the market, you know, you've lost a client, but you know what? That knowledge is so essential for your future, for your career, and it's invaluable."
Yeah, you learn from that, and you take that as part of what you've learned, that experience, and then it touches onto you being able to pass that experience on to your people so they don't make that mistake. So you've paid for it. Don't let anybody else pay for that mistake in the future. You know, that makes a big difference. It makes an enormous difference.
Don't make that mistake again.
Yeah, don't make that mistake again. Make it once, okay. Twice, you're a bit of a fool.
Yeah.
You got to make sure you don't make those mistakes through your working career, you know.
Absolutely. David, we're getting close to an end. I can't believe it's already been pretty much 1 hour. I guess one of the last questions is on everyone's mind nowadays. I always ask this, and I try to think about a lot. AI in our industry. Where do you see this? I mean, you did say about the machines becoming the equipment, becoming more advanced, more sensors, more everything. Where do you see, I guess, the autonomy in an AI?
Funnily enough, I was looking at this stuff the other day myself, and because I'm always interested to see where is AI going to take us. And when you need human intervention into what you do, it's nearly impossible to replace. You think about drilling rock, you think about doing pile driving or doing anything like that. Yes, you can put cameras and everything else in place. But if you haven't got somebody there to feel what is happening with the hole,
and adapt on
the go. Ground conditions are changing all the time. That's the one negative thing about working with nature. It's a positive thing as well. But you can go from doing a project where the rock depth is 3 meters. You go to the other end of the project, it's 12, 14, 15 meters deep.
Changes so much.
It changes so much.
Small span of distance.
In such a small period of time. It's nearly impossible to be able to put a linear scenario in place and go, if this happens, you need to do this. And the experience that the operators gain over years and years of training, it's nearly impossible to pull it out of them, put it into the machine and go, okay, go drill that hole. If you were drilling into, I don't know, styrofoam day in, day out, okay.
Sure.
You can do that. You can
create a model from
that. You create a model because it's continuous. It's very, very linear. You can work it all out. You can set the parameters. You can do all that. To do that against nature, it's nearly impossible. You're asking something that thinks logically to deal with nature, and nature is not always logic. There's no logic sometimes to what nature does.
Absolutely.
So I saw a chart there, and they had pile driving operators as one of the lowest scenarios to be replaced by AI.
Wow. There you go.
I have to show it to you after, but it's quite amazing. I looked at it, I said, yeah.
Was this an article online or?
Yeah, it was an article. It was about an AI scenario as well. So yes, you can do a lot of back end replacement. You might look at your finance side, all that type of advertising.
Yeah.
You might be able to do all of that type of stuff, but to replace connection with people, to replace all of that with AI, it's nearly impossible. Ultimately, Mike, this is my mentality as well. If you want things to go well, you need to collaborate, and you need to collaborate with people to deliver projects. You can have a 1,000-page document or contract in place, but you can't take that contract and use it to drill the rock or build the bridge.
Yeah.
You can't take it. It doesn't do anything. You can flop it around, it won't do anything. The only way you can get it done is through the relationships you build with the people you're working with.
Yeah.
And that collaboration then gives you ability to deliver something. That's my belief. So yes, there's going to be parts which will get resolved by using AI, and it might even be AI checks going into machines. Pre-start checklists. Pre-starts, press a button, the machine does its own checks.
Yeah.
An AI scenario there, flicks it off, it saves the operator.
Sends a report,
Yeah, sends a report. You got all the sensors and everything else in a machine. That type of stuff, that type of mechanical, logical stuff can be resolved. I think it's going to be a number of years before we have AI having the ability to overwrite and replace the human connection of what we get up to.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure. It's been super interesting. Not enough time,
not enough time, but that's okay. Another time. Take me for lunch.
Definitely will. Thank you very much for watching, guys. It's definitely been one of the most interesting discussions I've had so far with David from Avopiling. Until next time, remember, if it's not turning, you're not earning.